Let me briefly introduce myself and then we can start right away. My name is Shlomo Breznitz. I'm a professor of psychology. I've been doing brain research all my academic life. And about 11 years ago, the changes in the new discoveries in brain science convinced me that the time has come to try and develop some tools that might help ordinary people to keep their brains in better shape. And this is what brought me here. But I would not talk about my company, I will talk about the brain. If I would have to give this talk about the aging brain 15 years ago, probably I will need just one sentence. I will say that everything that goes up eventually comes down. And that's the end of the story. But fortunately for all of us today, we know that it's not true. The reason we know today that it's not true is that we have been totally unaware until quite recently of what the human brain can do at any time, even in old age. And this is what I want to share with you, to tell you what the brain can do and why it is not the case that everything that goes up must come down. There was a real hole in our knowledge that waited for many years for a certain type of research that was not forthcoming for a long time. And the research that we needed was not one that will compare people between the age of, let's say, 50 and 60 or 60 and 80, but research that will actually follow the same people throughout the lifespan. Because otherwise we are comparing things which cannot be compared easily. We really need to follow the same individual to see what is changing, if anything, over the years. It is not easy to get a research like this because you need a professor or a few professors who are willing to invest heavily in something that they will never be able to write up. Because they will be gone from research long before the study will be ready for publication. So you invest in the students of your students. But fortunately this happened, and now we have few very good and important studies which took people at the age of 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 80. 70, 75, 80. And tested a whole variety of cognitive skills. In addition, found out as much as possible about what they do in their lives, how they live, and so on. So what have we learned? There is one thing which all studies come up with, and it is universal. It happens to all of us. To different degrees, of course, but it happens to all of us. And that is that everything takes a little more time. The process, the speed with which we are processing information goes down, slows down. But this is not critical, because the difference in speed, although it is always there, is not very big. For instance, I am quite sure that it cannot explain the changes in the risk of older drivers. When we drive cars, you know that we are prone to more accidents than younger ones. But I have very good data which shows that it is not because of the speed that this happens. There are other very good reasons for this, but not the speed itself. So I assume that if we wanted at our age to volunteer or to be a fighter jet pilot, they will probably not take us because we are too slow. But I don't want to be a fighter jet pilot, and I assume that you don't want to be either. There are very few things in real life that this difference in speed really matters. You know, sometimes we are looking for a word that is evading us, or for a name that for some reason is on the tip of our tongue. But no, there are worse things in life than this. And it happens to people already at the age of 30, 40, perhaps not to such an extent, but it happens. Not a big deal. The second thing which comes out in all the studies is that there are tremendous individual differences. There are some people who, by the age of 65 already, you see a real decline in their mental capacity. And there are some people who keep on being sharp like they were before. Now, the beauty of this type of research is that now you can go back and ask the question, what is this group of people whose cognitive aging is so good that there is no drop, there is no decline? What did they do differently in life than the others? Because there is this information, how they were when they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I must start right away by telling you that it cannot be explained by genetics alone, at all. Genetics is always very important and plays always a role, and it does play a role in cognition as well. But compared to other factors, its role is minimal. So what is it? Well, let me give you one piece of statistic, which I find is the most dramatic I can think of, really. That comes up again in research after research. If you take the risk for dementia like Alzheimer's, which is a very frightening disease. If someone finished college or university, his or her risk drops down by 70%. Imagine. 70% drop in risk. It doesn't mean that it's full protection. We all know, unfortunately, people who have been very active and very scholarly all their lives and got the disease. But this is the nature of statistics. Still, the risk is much, much smaller. Now, why is it so? What is it about higher education that gives some measure of protection? Let me tell you right away what it is not. It is not the content of what the students learned in school, in the university. I have been teaching at the universities all my life, and I do not pretend that there is anything that I can teach my students that will protect their brains 40, 50 years later from getting the disease. It would be nonsensical even to think so. There is something else, though. People who finish higher degrees get more interesting jobs. The work they do is more stimulating to the brain than people who did not go to higher learning. And this is critical, because it means that for years and years and years, between 9 and 5 or whatever the hours, the brain is working to a larger extent than from somebody who is doing a very boring job. Now, this is basically the crunch of much of research, that the brain needs to be stimulated. Otherwise, it becomes idle. And this is not good. It has to work. It must not idle. So you find in these studies that there are other things which are good. For instance, leisure time. What does one do with one's leisure? It's not just work. I mean, there is life after work. There are still chunks of time that we can spend in different ways. There are people whose leisure involves some mental stimulation. For instance, social activity. Social life, a good, well-developed social life is always good for the brain because people are also always a little bit unpredictable. It's not entirely repetitive. Certain kinds of hobbies. Some people play bridge, which at first is excellent. You know, while you are mastering the game, you are really working hard with your brain. After a while, it becomes routine. The beauty about bridge that it also has the social component in it. I have been playing chess all my life. Although it's a very demanding game, now it's useless for me because I've been playing it so often that it is routine. It's, I'm sure, better than doing nothing, but not much better. Some people do crossword puzzles, Sudoku, all kinds of things. We'll come to it shortly. The worst thing is, and those are the people who show the most decline and the earliest decline, is not doing anything, is being very passive. Passivity, for instance, like in watching hours and hours of television. Now, I do not deny that there are some wonderful, challenging television programs, but if you watch for long hours every day, you don't just watch the good ones. Let's face it. And there is a major distinction between watching television and, for instance, reading a book. Let me give you a very simple illustration. Let's assume I'm reading a book, and in that passage, the author is describing a beautiful woman. So I'm looking at the page. I don't see a beautiful woman. I see black letters on white paper. That's all there is. And I have to do a lot of work here in order to translate those black letters on white paper into the image of the beauty that the author wants to convey to me. First of all, I have to analyze the letters and realize that these are words with meanings which I have stored in my memory. I have to retrieve them. I have to look at them. I have to understand them. And even then, what do I know? I mean, I have to try to imagine this woman. I have to try to compare her in my mind to someone whom perhaps looks similarly